President Joe Biden delivered his first address to a joint session of Congress and presented new proposals for his agenda. Iowa state government is taking a strong stand against so-called vaccine passports, and the latest census shows a significant drop in Illinois' population, enough to cost the state a seat in Congress. We'll talk about that this morning with Iowa Republican Party Chair Jeff Kaufman and Democratic political consultant Porter McNeil. Always great to see you both. Let's start with the census and the impact on Illinois. 6 states gained seats in the House of Representatives. 7 states lost seats. The net change for 12 of them is 1 seat. Texas gained 2 seats. Illinois was one of the losers. It lost 1 seat in Congress. So the majorities in each state will likely redraw their district maps to give their party an advantage, whether it's gaining or losing a seat. What, though, are the ramifications for Illinois and its influence on the national political scene by losing a seat? Porter, we'll start with you. You're the Illinois guy.
Well, you know, the loss was actually much less than was projected. I think it was 27,000 votes, and I mean citizens. So what you're going to see is trying to look at some of the southern Illinois loss and probably on the south side of Chicago, west side, and it'll mean redrawing the state of Illinois and swallowing up that geographic area into a new configuration. Unfortunately, I think what you see is you need more economic development downstate, which would help with population growth. So maybe that leads to policies on economic development like Governor Pritzker has and some of the Biden infrastructure for the next 10 years.
Jeff, how much is the loss, though, in terms of just politically not having that seat in Congress for a state like Illinois?
Sure, and we didn't think Iowa would lose a seat, but I certainly had my eye on that. And what I thought immediately when I saw that list is one less electoral vote. And so not only do you have one less congressperson, but also there's a little bit less of an influence on the presidential elections. Obviously, if some of this is coming from more rural Illinois, that's going to push things a little bit more politically within the state towards Chicago and the larger metro area. I actually would agree with Porter. I think these kind of things generally instigate talk of growth, keeping your population. I know just because there was a small chance that Iowa might be close, I know that conversation was sparked. So it's never a good thing, but certainly it could have been worse, no doubt about that.
Now, we've talked about vaccine passports for COVID-19 as a concept a couple of times on this program, but now we bring it back because there's legislation in Iowa that would ban government agencies, private businesses, and public venues from requiring people to prove they've been vaccinated against the coronavirus before serving them. The measure, largely pushed by Republicans and supported by Governor Kim Reynolds, cleared the Senate Commerce Committee. And we all understand the privacy issue, but don't forget the public health component in this. And Republicans typically want the government out of personal business and often argue that the markets and the private sector make these decisions, or best to make these decisions. Well, private businesses often say they have the right to refuse service to anyone. So what about letting that include whether to decide to serve people who are vaccinated? Jeff?
I was just talking actually earlier today to the Speaker of the Iowa House, and we were visiting about this bill and a few others. This bill is a reflection of the fear of government overreach, the fear of federal government interfering within the states, and also you're exactly right. It's individual freedom. It's a balancing act. There's nothing in that bill that would dissuade someone from getting the vaccine. There's nothing in that bill that's going to inhibit people that want to be vaccinated. I can tell you that there are people that wanted to go even further that sit in the Capitol. Other legislators, this was seen as a bit of a middle ground within the context of being concerned with personal freedom and privacy. And you're right, I look for this to become law.
Well, Porter, I think some people might argue that this is an example of government overreach.
Well, I think it's, I'm trying to find the consistency. There seems to be an inconsistency with a state like Iowa and every state trying to push for complete vaccination and then at the same time punishing, as I understand in that bill, there's some punishment of businesses that require that. So it's if you want to vaccinate Iowa, you want a safe and you want a healthy Iowa, but then you're sending a message that those businesses who are trying to promote economic development and a healthy citizenry are punished by this bill. And I don't understand the mixed messaging.
Jeff, do you have a quick counter to that?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about individual freedom, and the consistency in that message is the federal government, the state government, or a private business should not be able to ask questions that are invasive. And we're feeling good with where we're at with our vaccination rate, the amount of vaccinations that are available, and the health and safety of this state. I think the consistency is the emphasis on personal decision making and the individual citizen here in the state.
Well, let's move on to our last topic here. President Joe Biden delivered his first address to a joint session of Congress this week after reaching his first 100 days in office. He reiterated familiar positions, calling on Congress to address gun violence, immigration reform, and spend trillions of dollars on infrastructure. His new proposal, though, the $1.8 trillion American Families Plan to support child care and education, specifically universal pre-kindergarten, free community college, and more support for colleges with primarily minority student bodies. There's more to it than that, of course. The plan to pay for this by raising taxes on the wealthiest Americans and raising the capital gains tax. How much of his ambitious agenda do you think the president can actually accomplish, and where is there room for bipartisanship and compromise? Porter?
Well, listen, I think, first of all, the question on his first 100 days, if you told me he could vaccinate 220 million Americans and deliver $1,400 checks to more than 160 million Americans and have a job growth that we've seen, I would think you might be dreaming a little bit. So I just want to commend President Biden on tackling those twin challenges. Now, it's an ambitious plan. So obviously we know in Washington there'll be a lot of negotiations. But I think it's ambitious because it reflects the concern about this COVID economy, about what we've gone through as a nation, about how many people have struggled, small businesses and citizens. And it reflects aiming high for the future, trying to compete with China, not letting China beat us in producing clean energy jobs, the markets of the future. So I think it's a strong, patriotic, pro-growth, pro-jobs plan that obviously will be changed. It's Washington. Negotiations will occur.
Jeff, President's clearly here thinking big and wants to spend big. Where can Republicans go along with this?
Well, there's, and I would just add the vaccinations. I will hand it to President Biden. He did implement those, but there would not have been a vaccination without Operation Warp Speed. I think if he really wanted to set the tone for bipartisanship, he wouldn't even have had to mention the word Trump, but at least give a head nod to the past administration for Operation Warp Speed. In terms of the spending, yeah, $4 trillion, it's a lot. It's too much. And as far as not affecting people under 400,000, the very mention of the inheritance tax already broke that promise within that speech. I have nothing wrong with the president aiming high, though. I may not agree with some of these things, but I think that's typical. I think it's what it's expected in a State of the Union. Where are there areas? Certainly in infrastructure. He's going to have to be better than only 6% of that infrastructure bill, though, being about roads and bridges. But there is some room there. There is some room with childcare. There's some room with community colleges. So I think there are some areas there. He's going to have to put away the more partisan and the more controversial topics. House Resolution 1 that federalizes elections, that's a no-go. And talking about packing the court, that can undo any negotiation almost just like that. So there's going to have to be, it was a good speech. He is a nice fellow, and I don't mean that in a patronizing way, but that's also going to be have to followed by bipartisan actions as well as bipartisan speech.
Jeff Coppin, Porter McNeil, thanks so much for the conversation. Both of you, be safe. Time now for our question of the week. What's your opinion of President Joe Biden's first 100 days in office? Send your answer by email to fortherecord at WHBF.com or respond to this post on Facebook at the Local 4 News WHBF TV page or on my page.